Welcome back to another episode of PT Meal Podcast, a buffet of play, therapies, movement, exercise, activities, and leisure, all packed in a hearty conversation of physical therapy profession and practice. This is your weekly serving of insights, information, and inspiration from the experience and expertise of Filipino and global physical therapists. Again, I am Johan de la Paz. For those who don't know me, so I'm the host of the show. So welcome to PT Meal Podcast again. So this is going to be quick. We don't have any new guests today, or new topic today, but this is just a look back on the uh, year that has passed. So 2021. So I guess it was a fruitful year for the podcast. We had 30 new guests and some recap episodes. There are weeks that I think I didn't post any new episode. I think there was I guess there was just a time that I thought that I should need a break, and it was kind of becoming difficult to go through with the podcast. But as soon as comments come in or feedback coming from fellow physical therapists, students, that they are finding value or learning from the podcast, whether they listen it to any podcast apps, Spotify, Apple, um, what else, Google Podcast, uh, those things, and if they watch it on Facebook and or what else, or in YouTube especially. So there, um, it's surprising and you know heart fattening, nakakataba ng puso. I guess with the comments and the feedback, I guess it kind of reignites um my passion to doing this. Again, this is a passion project. If you are able to listen to the ad in the podcast about Anchor, it just earns like 1 cent per, I don't know, per day of listening. Average of 1 or 2 cents per day, per listen. And some episodes don't have that much listenership or support. Some do. So it's not really earning anything. I spend more than I earn in change. So, but I didn't do this primarily to earn or profit just yet. But hopefully, if there's a chance that I can reach out to more people using this with your support, of course, then who knows, diba? We can do some projects, some hopefully scholarship. Yung mga ganun din naisip ko eh. Those things. Anyway, so yeah, again, I just want to say thank you first for those who are listening, continually supporting, listening to the show, whether again in YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or any other podcast apps that you're listening to. Also, Facebook also has a podcast options now. I think it rolled out in the US, but soon in the Philippines they would have. So you can listen to the podcast in Facebook, in your Facebook apps soon. And your subscription, your reviews and comments are really important to me. So in your likes and follows and shares would really help the show, to gain more reach, to help more people, to inform, educate a lot of our physical therapists. And also, if you have any um, topics that you want to talk about, or have me research people or look for people to talk about that, and I would really appreciate it if you could message me in those apps: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, um, where else? um, Anchor. Um, yeah, email ptmealpodcast@gmail.com. So, yeah, there. So, again, we are just going to review this time the past episodes that we had, no? Mabilis na to. It's just gonna be quick. So, I prepared something, um, I don't know, a mini look back on this. Um, Paano ba to? Oh, siguro po ito na to. So, this is the year-end review that I prepared for us. Um, yeah, perfect, perfect. This is nice. All right. Hopefully this works. All right. So, um, this is again, we had 20 episodes, 30 episodes this year. And ano nangyari? Ayun. So 30 episodes of fun episodes. All right. So 2021. Sorry. So as I was saying, you know, this is from Spotify, yung ano nila, year end. No, Spotify wrapped 30 episodes so far. Magiging 30 episodes lang talaga siya because some episodes are recap. So 13 new episodes. So we've reached 32 countries, and thank you again for those who are listening in those countries. Syempre top one would be Philippines, then US, Philippines, US, then surprisingly, um, I think Saudi Arabia or UAE, parang ganon, some Middle East country, which was really surprising. I thought Canada or Australia, pero yeah. So we started the year with Sir Donald Manlapas, talked about exergaming. Maganda yung benefits of exergaming to uh, rehabilitate or bring back function. Then we had Miss Cindy, Mrs. Cindy Cecilio, who talked about physical therapy practice in a psychiatric setting. So it's surprising kasi we were not really familiar that, you know, physical therapists would practice in a psychiatric setting. I am practicing now in a psychiatric forensic facility. Forensic meaning they are under the care of the law. So basically, offenders, prisoners, and that needed um, treatment for their mental health issues. All right, so I think it's becoming more prevalent now. I think Miss Cindy is practicing in an acute hospital with psychiatric patients. So her practice is a little different than mine. So that's an interesting episode to listen to. Marco Villaneva is a high school batchmate of mine. We talked about physical therapy as a second course. No, he was a varsity in his college. I forgot where, and decided to become a physical therapist. So it just proves that if you want to do something, you can do it. It doesn't matter how older you are. If you want to be sorry, if you want to be something, you should pursue it and do your best. All right, next one is John Hernandez. I reached out to John, and he was really gracious and accepted my invitation to be in the podcast. He is the physical therapist for the LA Rams, a football team here in the US. So he talked about being a physical therapist as well as working with the team and the medical team of ATCs, coaches, and um, trainers. So It's also it's a nice episode to listen to. Next is Miss Sarah Wenger. We talked about um, trauma informed care. So trauma informed care is one of the foundation in the practice I have here in the mental health facility. So the premise is that patients that we see have some sort of trauma in their life that we know nothing about unless we ask. So we should assume that people might have some form of trauma in the past, sexual neglect, abuse, whatever, that may affect their rehabilitation. So we have to be informed in a sense that we should not assume anything. We should be able to verify and, look at history, look at the patient's attitudes and beliefs before or not really jumping into conclusions. Next is Sir Arthur King from the cardiac rehabilitation, comprehensive cardiac rehabilitation program from the Philippine Heart Center. So we talked about cardiac rehabilitation general. Next is Major Carlo Mariano of the U.S. Air Force. He talked about being a physical therapist in the Air Force and going up the ladder. Now he is not practicing as a physical therapist anymore, but I think supervising uh, medical um, personnel, I guess. But he's been there. He's been working a long time, so as with experience and your performance, then of course you'll get promoted. Season 6 is also interesting. We started with Mr. Urson Relioso about his modern manual um, therapy or eclectic approach to physical therapy or eclectic approach to manual therapy. It's quite interesting because there's a lot of school of thought for manual therapy, and he kind of broke it down on what approach you know one should take if one should delve into manual therapy. Mom Lucy, one of my mentors when I was in physical therapy school, we talked about research uptake. No, we we sometimes we know that the 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 what do you call this, that research is ongoing, that there's a lot of information coming out, but the use of those information sometimes delayed. No, so we talked about how these research can be put into practice and what are the enablers or barriers that could impact applying those research into practice. Next is Mark Basco. I reached out to him because of his published work regarding high intensity resistance training on older adults, which is interesting. So um, we sometimes many of us would see older adults as people who can't tolerate higher resistance or higher intensity of treatment, but there's a lot of studies nowadays that they would greatly benefit from doing high intensity resistance training as long as it's in a graded progressive plan. Next is Mr. Uh, Lance Frank. He is a male practitioner of pelvic health. So he is an inclusive practitioner. He sees all genders, male, female, cis, and LGBTQIA. So we talked about being a male practitioner in the pelvic health scene, and does that affect um, patient compliance or therapeutic alliance or comfort if their pelvic health physical therapist is a man, you know? But nowadays sometimes there's also a market for male physical therapists in the pelvic floor scene. Some guys also are more comfortable if the physical therapist understands for the same way as female patients would understand, um, would feel that they were being understood if their pelvic health physical therapist is a female as well. So there are some benefits to that as well. Sir Paul Saladar talked about, we chatted about his business, his wellness hub, which started from a home gym, then just you know um, evolved into a physical therapy, weightlifting, wellness center that still thrived even during the pandemic. So next is Morris Montilla. We talked about trading. So not it's nice to talk about other things aside from physical therapy. So Morris uh, kind of gave me a crash course on trading day stocks. Though it's not, I think it's not for everyone, but it's something that we should look into at some time to see where our money can go, not just stay in the bank. So yeah. Next is Miss Grace Brucal, who talked about the autism spectrum from the viewpoint of a physical therapist and a mother who has a child with um, autism. So talked about that. Next is Mom Cheryl Peralta, and we talked about physical therapy education and right now and what the future holds. You know, we recorded this, and it was still at the somewhat mid pandemic season, but the classes was already starting online, and we asked like if this is going to continue. So yeah, that's a good discussion as well from Che. Next is next season is we started with Michael Dato, which who talked about working in a skilled nursing facility. So a skilled nursing facility is one of the settings that a physical therapist can work in here in the U.S. So a skilled nursing facility usually the patient needs attention from nursing and rehabilitation, and they can't go to their home yet because they need some specialized attention, medical attention. That's why they're staying in a skilled nursing facility for a while. So that's what he talked about. Next, an interesting area in physical therapy: equine physical therapy or horse physical therapy, which from the horse PT Barbara Parks. She has a YouTube channel if you want to check it out. She talked about being a physical therapist and training to be a horse physical therapist. So that's interesting. Hopefully, I can get someone who is working with dogs. Here in California, there's a lot of there's a school for canine rehabilitation, and it should be fun to talk about that. Next episode is physical therapy education from the standpoint of physical therapy interns. Aina Rojas, Jean Pangilinan, and Monique Paragua. They are all, what do you call this? They are all officers of the Association of Philippine Physical Therapy Students. So they talked about their perception when the lockdown came in and what their future holds. Next is Ulysses Sontilla. He is the founding president of PEO, Philippine Association of Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapists. And we talked about a recent article that was released. It was authored by Chad Cook. It was the demonization of manual therapy, which talked about, I think, 8 points. So it's an interesting discussion as well. And the paper of Chad Cook is as interesting as well. So you have to check that out as well. Dami as well. So next is Riza, Miss Riza Dehito. I reached out to Riza because there was an article that featured her um, as a humanitarian worker, and that's quite interesting. Coming from a medical background, physical therapy, medical background, then going into humanitarian work. Before gusto ko siyang puntahan eh. I was really interested in that, like medical missions in other countries, Africa or Sudan. But she's the one who did it. So if you're interested in that, listen to that episode with Miss Riza. Next is I had Charmaine back in the podcast where now she talked about the Filipino Physio master classes. It's available, I think, now, and it's available now on their website, the Filipino Physio, where you can, get to learn more from world class physical therapists, Filipino physical therapists who are practicing in different parts of different parts of the world. I think there's one masterclass already available, shoulder dislocation. So you guys check that out. Next is Miss Lani Puroganan, an episode about prosthesis and orthosis coming from a certified prosthetist orthotist. So magandang viewpoint niya from a different perspective. So next is Eugene Octaviano. We talked about functional training, di ba? We hear that a lot. Functional. So what is functional? What's really functional training? And what should constitute a functional training regimen? So yun yung pinag-usapan namin in that episode. And to cap off season 7, I had Daria Aller. She's part of the long COVID.physio board. So check that website out, longcovid.physio. So we talk about long COVID and how it should be managed with physical therapy. And I just want to say the takeaway there is exercise is not the answer for people who are suffering from long COVID. It's rest, actually, you know? So that's quite interesting. We as physical therapists think that it's always exercise. You have to move, you have to push yourself. But for people who are suffering long COVID, it's not the case. They need to rest or else they're going to crash. So, and the current episode, current season that we're at, season 8, started with 2 episodes about business. First is from F. Scott Feel. He talked about side gigs and side hustles. So Bert De Vera talked about home health contract business, which is something that physical therapists can do here in the US if they're tired of the 9 to 5 job, following uh, employers, being dictated on what to do. So that is an option. Home health contract business. Next is Sir Dudan, Rolando Lazaro. He is, how do you say this? The main author or editor of the neuro rehabilitation book. Um, Let me try to see. Um, I'll post it. I forgot. I'll post it. So it's amazing. If we talk about publication and being an author, we usually just think of scientific publications, but having, for me, when I realized or knew about him being in the main author, it's his name on that, his big name on that cover of that textbook. I was like, it made me proud. It made me, it cliche as it might sound, Pinoy pride. So, so it's just amazing that um, there's, physical therapists like us who are doing great in, writing textbooks, international textbooks. No. The next two is we visited the Middle East with Mam Bea in Palon. Sorry for the typo. Mambea Palon. Sorry, not Palona. Mambea Palon. She is from Qatar. And Mom Steffi Illustre, she is from Abu Dhabi in UAE. So we talked about the process of going there and, you know, what it's like to be in those countries. Now, probably some misconceptions and what really is going on there. And lastly, next week we are going to publish or have our last episode for the year here of a returning guest, Sir Eleazar Tayag, who would talk about palliative care and hospice physical therapy. We're not really much familiar about, end of life care with physical therapy. We usually handle, pediatrics up to geriatrics, but we're not much, familiar on what to do if we handle patients that, we at their end of life. What do we do as physical therapists? Do we even have an impact on that? So we are going to talk about that, and that would finish up our year. So yun. It's not kind of quick. Sorry. So it's still 30 minutes. But we have learned, if you have uh, listened to all those episodes, I bet you have learned a lot from those. And uh, if this is your first time hearing the topics that we have for this year, I encourage you to look back, scroll down in the apps. It's it's in the podcast apps. It's Some of them are not in YouTube yet. So scroll down in the podcast apps again, in Spotify, Apple Podcast, um, Google Podcast, and Breaker. What else? Breaker, Overcast, iHeartRadio. I think I'm in iHeartRadio as well. Amazon Podcast, not yet. I don't think so. So yeah. So sorry. Uh, Amazon. Okay. Yeah. So make sure to catch that. And sorry about that. My Alexa just went crazy. So again, thank you for subscribing, listening to the podcast. Here are the details. Please subscribe, review, comment, share to your friends. Palaki natin yung reach natin. And please like, follow, and share social media in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, at PT Meal Podcast, in all those social media. And also, you can reach me, ptmealpodcast@gmail.com. So, yeah. There. Um, Tama ba? Yun na lang ba yung papakita ko? I think that's it. I think that's the last slide I have. Uh, yeah, it's the same. It's the same. PT Meal Podcast. So, yeah, guys. Thank you again. And I hope 2022 would be more fruitful for us, better, in all aspects. And I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Let's make 2022 great. If not, then at least we try. Okay, bye.